Hey everyone, welcome to Lemongrass Live. I'm Dave Patty, Director of Platform Engineering here at Lemongrass. Today we're going beyond bots. Automation used to mean make the robot click the button so I don't have to. That's sweet, but the game now is scalable, secure, intelligent automation that makes business outcomes, not just the to-do list. We're talking SAP Business Technology Platform, or BTP. It's the glue, the guardrails, and the jet engine for your SAP landscape. Joining me are two people who'll keep me honest. Ian Graham, our C-suite whisperer and strategy brain. Also, Chris Beard, our solutions architect, who can turn a whiteboard sketch into a production pipeline before my coffee calls. Gents, you ready to go?
Yep, let's do this.
Fired up and ready to go, Dave.
All right, so today we're going to discuss three topics. Democratizing development, how to let super users build safely with no code and low code on BTP, and then surface their work through the whole org. Next up will be event-based architectures. This, in a nutshell, is when the business twitches, the system reacts to it. So we'll be discussing S/4HANA situation handling, availability check, and BTP orchestration. And last, but by no means least, we're going to be talking about some of the other functionality of BTP, what we refer to as the power bar. AI with Joule, working in your favorite development environment, analytics, and the ops bits that keep everything compliant. So to get us started and set the scene, Ian, can you give us the boardroom version? Why are CFOs and COOs leaning into BTP now?
Yes, of course. Thanks, David. Well, automation is really now a P&L lever. It's not just an IT hobby anymore. We're reducing that time to detect problems, the time to act upon them, and the variance in outcomes. And all that translates to working capital improvements, fewer penalties, and better customers' promises kept. BTP is attractive because it's coherent, integration, events, workflow, data, and AI on one platform with all the governance baked in.
And for the developers out there, could we get the technical version, Chris?
Sure, thanks, Dave. So BTP gives you integration, as Ian said, API management connectors and eventing, so event mesh, which is the very exciting new innovation in that space. Workflow and automation, SAP Build process automation, no and low code, of course, along with pro code runtimes using CAB, ABAP Cloud, Kima. Data, HANA Cloud and DataSphere, of course, along with the BDC, and AI, including Joule. All identity aware, auditable, and deployable through proper pipelines. It's a platform you can truly run at scale.
Great. So let's get started with our first subject of democratizing development. And the important bit here is doing so without the chaos. So every organization has got these Excel heroes and power users itching to help in the business. But this often causes high blood pressure for our CIOs. Ian, how do we democratize without destabilizing?
Yeah, in my head, Dave, it's three words really: permissioned, opinionated, and reusable. So, permissioned being identity and access tied to roles. Citizens developers can only touch approved data objects and APIs. It's opinionated, a center of excellence publishes templates, styles, and rules, so people build in the right way by default without having to think about it. And it's reusable, so anything usable is catalogued and discoverable. It's not buried in someone's laptop that only they know where it is. It's shared throughout the community.
And Chris, what tools does SAP offer to support this?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. So in SAP Build, we've got build apps for no and low code UIs and mobile. Build process automation for workflows, decisions, and attended, unattended automations. And then WorkZone, of course, the new portal to surface these solutions in one front door. And then we've got to add in integration suite for approved connectors and APIs and identity services for roles. Transport management, so citizen developers now aren't building in production directly. We're doing a dev test prod under change control, and we log everything so ops can observe the flow, health, and cost.
And I've heard you discussing a playbook for super users and managing these enterprise assets. Can you explain what that is?
Sure, I'm delighted to hear you ask. The playbook I use is seeding a library in the first place of approved data models and API proxies, sales orders, purchase orders, ATP, master data, and so on. Then secondly, shipping a starter kit, UI components, validation rules, error patterns, and a style guide. Number 3 is a maker checker, super user processes, pro dev reviews. 4 is CI/CD with proper Piper or GitHub actions, automated tests for data access and performance. And then lastly, publishing to Workzone with a business glossary so people can find it, because that's really the cool thing now, is we can take best practice for one small part of the organization and surface it to everyone else.
And don't forget to measure the right things. So lead time from idea to deployment, cycle time removed from the process, rework avoided, and adoption. Don't just count the number of bots created at the end of the month.
To get started, what's a realistic sort of week 1 citizen build?
Sure. So week 1, something simple like a blocked invoice quick fix assistant, for example, collecting data from across different screens and allowing actions to be taken faster and in one place. What that might look like is when an invoice gets blocked in SAP for a price or quantity mismatch, accounts payable AP get a nudge. A small BTP screen shows the invoice, what's wrong, and what matches on the PO lines. Then it gets 2 smart buttons: release if it's within tolerance, or send to approver if it isn't. The alert comes from S4HANA situation handling, and the approval steps run in BTP workflows, so the team clears the blocks in minutes instead of hunting across multiple screens and having to move the action forward in a more complex way.
Okay, so the hidden values, organizational memory. So once that pattern exists, form, ATP check, approval, it becomes a reusable block that other teams can snap into their use cases, really.
Okay, we hear a lot of myths about this. One of those being that no code means that you get no governance. What do you think about that, Chris?
Only if you ignore the platform. On BTP, you can lock down data scopes, enforce transport, and observe runtime. No, you would have to choose not to follow governance, not to. It's not a feature of the BTP platform.
And we also hear about citizen development replacing developers. Is that something we've seen?
I wouldn't say that was the case. No, I think it multiplies developers. The pros handle the architecture, security, reusable services, etc., and the citizens themselves assemble that value far quicker, but within those guardrails that have been set.
Is this not effectively creating a shadow IT?
I couldn't disagree more. Shadow IT happens when front doors to IT don't exist, when it's hard and difficult to do things the right way. What we're doing here is making it way easier and way more impactful for citizen developers to be able to engage with the proper way of doing things. Workzone, Catalog, and COE are the front door, and they're open to the community.
That's absolutely brilliant. Thanks, Chris and Ian. That was great. Let's shift though from people to the systems and alerting, and how we can visit these the event-driven actions that we're looking for. Could you tell us a little bit about the events, Chris?
I'm excited to tell you about the events, David. It's really cool. Events are they're like the nervous system. In S4HANA, situation handling detects conditions like late deliveries, blocked invoices, maybe stock shortfalls, and raises situations. Those flow to BTP event mesh or through APIs. Build process automation and rules or decisions orchestrate what happens next. Humans only step in when judgment or escalation is needed. No more busy work. You're now adding value through your ability to make sensible business decisions, and the computer's doing the rest.
Yeah, so strategically from a board level perspective, that's time to detect going from hours to seconds, and time to act from days into minutes. And what we see from that is margin multipliers.
Do you think you could give us an example that would resonate with our customers? Paint me a picture of how this would work for warehouses and stores, Chris.
Sure, let me give you an example that a customer built. So they had a situation where sales orders in S-Floor would trigger a wave to the warehouse. Several store replenishment orders depend on the inbound import. So you're getting all your stuff coming to DC and then going out to the stores. An availability check looks tight. So the supplier confirms that the actual delivery was a partial shipment. They didn't send all the stuff they said they would. And that can trigger a situation, as I described before, for delivery shortfall. That's when this hits BTP and the clever stuff really happens. So what BTP is going to do next is going to read the fine print in the contract with the supplier. There'll be a decision process, and the buyer will be involved to make the necessary business decisions about whether there's these supplier penalties, whether that contract is coming up for renewal, how that might feed into the negotiations, building on that business process that otherwise might not really find out about this stuff until that community asked for information about the supplier performance. It's proactive rather than reactive. It prioritizes people's, not just orders. So using ATP rules, a flow score determines by how important that customer is to you, looking at loyalty schemes, how much they've bought in the last year, all the other intelligence you have to work out where that small stock you got is going to go. Maybe we don't pro-rata it to the stores equally. Maybe one store has our highest value customers and it needs the lion's share of the order. And BTP can use some level of algorithm to be able to allocate the stock to the right store at the right time to minimize the business impact of this order. You can look forward in time, so looking at pre-orders and orders that are due to be collected in store, and make sure deliveries are arriving on time in a way to avoid that, and also across the wider delivery network. So what the customer did, which I thought was really smart, is instead of just looking at the one isolated event in that distribution center, maybe I have a distribution center much further away that normally wouldn't supply those stores, but I can actually fulfill the order in 3 days' time by taking stock from another delivery center and minimize the impact that way. So it chooses the least pain option. It's mobilizing the wider business context across all the relevant business processes which otherwise might be left out. And then, of course, doing the normal things like booking another order in the future to make sure that stock is replenished appropriately. Whereas previous solutions may have been much simpler, just looking to increase the stock later on. And the business has to deal with all the complexity and the pain with people dealing with all those problems rather than the machine doing it in an automated fashion. Does that help to give a concrete example, Dave?
Yeah, no, that's a great example from the customer perspective, how we can improve things for them. But we're doing a lot more than that with this solution. How does this improve the user experience?
Well, that's where Joule changes the vibe, Dave. This is the most common, I would say, use of AI in the context of SAP at the moment. Joule has access to your integrated business model across the whole business suite, and it's able to surface information from many areas, from many different modules across S4, EWM, commerce, and get information out to the users. So you can have a view about proposed quantities, draft supplier email. You can then review and approve rather than having to get that information from lots of places and build something yourself. It really is a portal to the whole of your SAP world and data, and it's controlled, of course, by the access controls you have, so you're not accessing things you shouldn't do. And Joule, of course, a trusted AI solution built by SAP, gives you the information you need.
Fabulous. And when a store manager calls in about a new product that's missing in action, they don't need to jump into Fury either. They can simply ask Joule, when will SKU 8492 hit my store? Joule will then pull the ASN, the transport ETA, any DC slotting and ATP that needs to be done, and then it offers to notify the team and pause the local promotion to avoid any customer disappointment out there in the field.
That's great. And so how do we keep this from running away from us?
It's about making sure we've got design patterns that are robust and reliable. So making events so they can replay without double creating orders. So if the event triggers a second time, you're not creating erroneous business data. 2 events, one after the other. Imagine that the first event contradicts a later one. We need the ability to be able to reverse it or adjust in order that we don't end up in a mess. Feature flags, so you can toggle rules on and off easily, quickly roll out changes. Metrics we actually track: detection latency, decision latency, and exception rate, and a full audit trail of who and what was decided and why. And these are all features of the BTP tooling and platform that gives you a way of moving forward in a way that's consistent and coherent. It's really difficult to get into a mess if you follow the best practice design patterns.
And don't forget the governance that we discussed as guardrails earlier on in the conversation. So need to make sure that the identity carries right through from BTP into S4. So if you can't post a PO in S4, you can't do it through automation either. Look at AP management, where it enforces the rate limits and scopes. And the Cloud ALM provides end-to-end visibility, process, health, errors, cost, etc.
And could you give us a couple more examples of these event use cases we've seen recently?
Sure. I mean, price variance is a good one. So you can have a tolerance for price variance, maybe less than 2%, and if it's within tolerance, just auto approve. Otherwise, through the normal flow. HR onboarding, of course, HR one of the earliest areas to adopt AI, which we spoke about before. Success factors creates a cross-app flow, accounts, approvals, equipment, and access. No email chains. So there are examples across the entire business process hierarchy that SAP supports.
Yeah, and we found through conversations that we've had at C-level that the board loves these because they basically turn latent risk into managed exceptions. So step in when you need to, and effectively shrinking the long tail of surprises that the boards quite often get shocked with.
So this all sounds brilliant, but sometimes these things can take a long time to deliver. How quickly do you think you can get started with event-driven automation?
Yeah, so I think we talked about a week one example before. I think more realistically, a few weeks to do something. And the way I would do it is, first of all, I pick a pain point with a measurable cost, something like back orders, blocked invoices, or returns. Catalog the source events and the target actions, so you know what's coming in and what's going out. And then implement a happy path in BTP through event mesh, business process automation, and then S4 APIs. And then add one rule and one human approval. Don't get over ambitious when you're building your pilot. Instrument metrics and alerts, and then roll out to a couple of pilot regions, gather feedback, use that to build momentum, buy-in, and frankly, funding for a proper project, and then scale from there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Chris. Set that one single North Star KPI. For something like back orders, you mentioned it might be a stock out avoidance or penalties prevented, and tie that into a real dollar number challenge and keep on checking it all the time.
Thanks. That's been really interesting to hear those examples of how we can make use of event-driven automation. Now let's move on to BTP and the powerful tools that it enables for us and for the rest of the slot. Do you think you can highlight for our listeners a few of those tools that you think are most beneficial, Chris?
Absolutely, thank you. And I really relish that opportunity because we've dived in, really focused here on citizen development, democratized development, and also the integration space, but of course, and eventing. But BTP is much wider than this. We spoke about integration suite with cloud integration, API management, event mesh, connecting both SAP and importantly, non-SAP on-prem and cloud, and including non-SAP to non-SAP systems. Pro development, of course, we touched on, but it includes Business Application Studio, your choice of IDE where you like to develop. CAP with no Java for rapid reopinionated services. About cloud, we need tight S4 extensions the clean way, so following the clean core push from SAP with the side-by-side development. Kima for containerized microservices and event subscribers. CI/CD, very important with proper Piper or GitHub actions. Then if we move away from ProDev to the data analytics area, we've got DataSphere, which we see often using for data governance, even where there's another Lakehouse application. Semantic models across SAP and non-SAP. HANA Cloud for real-time processing and exposing live models to analytics tools, if indeed we're using the HANA Cloud for that purpose. Then in AI, we touched on it briefly, but Joule is the conversational front door for your suite, but also AI Core, AI Launchpad to train and host machine learning or use foundational models. Document information extraction for invoices, POs, and delivery notes. Think about it like optical character recognition on steroids and with superpowers. Experience, Workzone, the successor portal to put apps, tasks, and insights in one place with role-based access. And then ops and security. We can't forget about ops and security. Cloud ALM for monitoring and change, secrets management, policy-based access, cost usage dashboard. I could go on, but it gives you the idea. BTP is a very wide gamut of enterprise services, all under one set of security and governance.
And the strategic point from my perspective is that of modularity. So with BTP, you're resisting the urge to customize the core, which we all know is a long-term objective to get to a clean core. So you keep S4 clean, move the logic to side-by-side services and upgrades, stop being a trauma.
Now, a lot of this sounds very similar to robotic automation, but a lot of people had problems with that before. Why is this different to RPA?
Yeah, RPA, of course, the buzzword 20 years back maybe. We're not doing what RPA was, building one program to press buttons on another. We're building automated business events and APIs not screen pixels where it's clicking. The platform's stateful, observable, and governed. It's so much smarter than what we were doing before with RPA. Bots still have their place, especially in legacy corners, but the backbone is events and services, and eventually I think RPA will be completely phased out in favor of something a bit more intelligent.
How do we avoid automation islands owned by different teams?
Yeah, I guess it's a mindset change, isn't it? It's we need to see BTP as the platform of record. So publish your APIs, events, and components into a catalog. So reuse, make that a policy, not just a suggestion. So maybe fund a centre of excellence that's going to curate the building blocks and start to enforce those as standards.
And where can AI help us today practically?
When I think about where AI is today, and of course the AI is never going to get worse than it is now, and there will be new use cases coming, and this will be out of date in 3 weeks. But for me, right now, this moment, there are 3 sweet spots. Dual for conversational retrieval of your SAP estate, as we spoke before, being able to grab information from lots of places and help you do things without going through multiple screens. Document extraction that we spoke about a bit earlier to kill manual data entry. Decision support, recommendations and approvals, right? You get decision fatigue if you have to approve everything all the time with no consideration as to how impactful that is. And AI can really help decision makers to understand what's a really important decision where I need to sit down and think about this, and what's matter of course and straightforward like everything else you've been doing 50 a day of. So yeah, start where data is strong and outcomes repeatable with that last one.
Now, budgets and margins are always tight. What is there being offered here around cost control?
Yeah, we've got to tag those workloads, set quotas, watch the concurrency, and report on a cost per business outcome. If a flow doesn't move a KPI, don't be afraid to retire it. Move on to an alternate solution.
Thank you very much, Ian and Chris. All right, so let's end with a cheat sheet that our listeners can screenshot in their heads. Ian, could I get 3 lines for leadership in the C-suite?
Yeah, it boils down in my head to picking that lighthouse process with a real dollar pain and starting to focus on that instead of trying to boil the ocean in one go. So maybe fund a small centre of excellence to run those governance and templates and get that word out there and start to grow into the environment. And measure business outcomes from day one. If we're not measuring business outcomes, we're not doing our job properly. So there's no vanity metrics in that. Let's look at the actuals. That's my 3.
And Chris, can we get 3 for the builders out there?
Sure can. So first one, events first, UI second, emails distant last. Make everything observable, logs, metrics, traces, and business KPIs. And publish reusable pieces. Add to that library APIs, rules, UI blocks into the catalog.
And from my perspective, I think the most important thing is to keep S4 clean, extend it side by side on BTP. Really important to treat your citizen devs like a team sport. So make it fun, get them involved, and you'll get really good outcomes. And if automation can't explain why it's making a decision, it won't scale. So it's really important to pay attention to what you can test and also why you're doing something. Now, if you want help turning anything we've been talking about today into something live in 6 weeks with either a citizen dev playbook, event catalogs, a lighthouse process in production, reach out to Lemongrass. This is literally what we do all day long.
Fabulous. Thanks for having me, David.
Can't wait to see what people build.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This has been Lemongrass Live Beyond Bots. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Cheers.
Cheers all.